I had a concern about the Toyota GR86. Not a serious concern, not the sort of concern that involves smoke, warning lights, or a man in a high-vis jacket waving me into a lay-by. It might be too reasonable. So before the city had woken up, I brought it to the edge of the sea with a simple plan. Start here at the coast, cross the city, climb toward the mountains to the north, and see whether one quiet car could make the space between places feel like more than just distance. And almost immediately, the car presented a problem. It was sensible. It was behaving. There were no loud, boisterous turbos tearing through the Tokyo dawn. No great mechanical tantrum. No sense that the car was about to turn the next junction into a formal apology. Just balance, precision, obedience. All of which are very admirable qualities, but deeply inconvenient when you're trying to produce a motoring program. The problem with a car that simply does what you ask is that for a while you suspect it might be hiding a personality fault. The GR86 didn't fight the city. It didn't make every corner feel like a negotiation. It did not arrive in a cloud of wheel spin, panic, and misplaced confidence. It just drove. Neatly. Calmly. Almost suspiciously well. Which is wonderful, apparently. For the first few miles, I kept waiting for the car to announce itself, to give me the moment, the flaw, the argument, anything. But the longer it stayed quiet, the more obvious something else became. The car wasn't refusing to speak. It was simply refusing to interrupt. And while I was still listening for the car, the road itself had already started talking. At first it was the small things. The road narrowing, the trees leaning closer, the city falling away behind us. With less of the car to manage, there was suddenly more of everything else. The surface, the shape of the tarmac, the way the road seemed to disappear into the trees then return with another corner waiting quietly behind it. And the GR86 just kept moving through all of it. Not absent, not boring really, just careful not to stand out and not to stand in the way. And then the world seemed to open up. A lake appearing from the depths of what was just now a forest. The sort of view a louder car might have turned into its own amphitheatre, but in the Toyota it became part of the drive. Slowly, the quietness stopped feeling like absence. It started feeling like permission. Permission to look further, to hear the road without needing a performance, to let the spaces between the destinations become their own places. It hadn't made the journey smaller by being quiet. It had just given it some room to grow. It would be easy at this point to mistake quietness for passiveness, but that would be unfair to the car. It wasn't absent from the journey, it was there, in the steering, in the balance, in the small honest way it settled into a corner and simply let the road continue. No fuss, no theatre, no desperate need to prove the moment belonged to it. It just needed to be good enough that I stopped worrying about it. And somewhere along these roads, that stopped feeling like a problem. It started feeling like a mobile window to the world. And just as the car started to evolve before me, the road began to also. The forests thinned, the corners stretched out and elongated. The city was no longer behind us so much as below us, and the GR86 kept climbing with the same quiet certainty it had carried from the coast. No sudden transformation, no heroic second act. Just the same car doing the same simple things, while the world around it grew larger. By then, I had stopped waiting for it to become more dramatic. Maybe this was the drama. Not noise or speed, just distance. The morning light, and a road slowly lifting us out of everything we had driven through. And then, just as morning finally broke over the mountains, the road delivered the ending I thought I had come for. Coast to city. City to forest. Forest to mountain. A quiet car, a long road, and the sunrise waiting at the top. The GR86 had done everything I asked of it. It had carried the distance, left room for the world, and most importantly, turned a route across the map into something worth remembering. However, by this point I had become emotionally irresponsible, so I turned around, back into the madness, into the sleet, and onto roads where lesser cars might have started panicking or making noises or excuses. And it was there for the first time that the Toyota started doing something unpredictable. Or maybe it had been doing it all day and I'd only just noticed. Maybe it had been staring me in the face this whole time. It was brilliant. The way back was less of a test of the car, and that's why it mattered even more to me. The drive here had been a question. Would a quiet car disappear between the city and the trees and the mountains? But the drive back was a statement. Of course not. By then, I wasn't driving back to prove a point, or to try and exemplify that cars without big engines and loud noises make everything more boring. I was already convinced they could make an even better point by telling you to shut the hell up, taking you by the hand, and showing you the way. Once we had descended, and with neither the car nor the road as my competition, this journey became something else entirely. It started with a task, a test, a question. It hadn't even concluded yet, and it had already urinated on the rug at the doors of uncertainty. Corners in a car like this are different. You're not chasing to find the straight line at the end to open the taps. You're not trying to flick the back end out like a sneezing Kardashian. Towns are no longer markers, they're places. The roads interwoven through fields and trees become more than just tarmac and paint. Everything feels different because everything feels noticeable. It's the kind of car that almost makes you want to wave properly at the neighbour who's blocked your driveway again. It's the kind of car that makes you feel like part of this world. Across quiet roads, this car turns the monotonous into the harmonic. And eventually, the forests began to thin, and the booming metropolis began to re-emerge. Fields gave way to guardrails, lanes turned into highways. The city, though, was no longer as loud, no longer as obnoxious as city driving is to me normally. It wasn't the big, annoying obstacle in the way of the nice stuff with the green bits. It was alive and thriving with the thrum of life mankind musters. It didn't feel like the same road, not even the same journey. It's ridiculous really, because nothing says unromantic like driving past a crash on a highway ramp. And yet, somehow, all that steel and concrete felt grown from the same seed as the mountains and the grasslands before it. The city hadn't suddenly changed or become any more beautiful. For the second time in 2 episodes, it was me who had changed. Shaped and moulded into a mushy mess by a car that just a few hours ago I would have traded for a warm meal. And that, I think, is how my view of the GR86, of Toyotas, of everyday cars in general, was reborn. They don't ask for attention or fascination. They don't shout and scream or have arguments with tree trunks. They don't turn forests, lakes, sleet, sunrise, fields or concrete into backdrops for their own escapades and grand adventures. Instead, they neatly put them in a scrapbook and hand deliver it. Humbly, honestly, brilliantly. Somewhere within the space between, the road stopped feeling like distance. It stopped being the thing between here and there. The road itself had become remarkable. These cars, they don't redefine the world, they don't even define it. They acknowledge it, they accept it, and they move on. The road that I thought was finished was only the start, and maybe that's why this journey will stay with me for so long. Not because the car made the journey feel bigger than it was, but because it made me feel small and insignificant enough for everything around us to have meaning. Some cars fill a road with memories. Others just leave you with just the right amount of room for the journey to become one.